Bushby. Senator Whish-Wilson.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. Sometimes working in this chamber feels a bit like the Truman Show, with all the cameras and live broadcasting and people looking down on you. But it's worth reflecting, looking from the outside in. If you were the public, what would you make of this government and this debate today? A government which I point out has lost the faith of the public faster than any other first-term government in the last 40 years. I'll tell you what I think it looks like. If you're a powerful organisation in this country and you have money and you donate to this government, the Liberal or National Party, they will use this place to deliver for you. If you want to return to a free-for-all financial commission system, a wind-back of consumer protections to help your business, ignoring recent disasters and the damage done to consumers of financial services, such as from the collapse of Storm Financial, or this government's disastrous MIS schemes over the past decade, all you have to do is donate, and guess what? The Liberal and Nationals will deliver. If it looks obvious that backroom deals have been done on these FoFA reforms, with the industry lobbyists so favoured by this government, then why not special favours for other legislation in front of this parliament? If you don't like a mining tax because it nibbles at your super profits and you donate, the Liberals and Nationals deliver. If you run a polluting power plant and you don't want to pay for the damage burning fossil fuels cause to our environment and you donate, the Liberals and Nationals deliver. If you think the government is here to prioritise the delivery of healthcare or education or a future free from climate shocks, then this government is not for you. Why? I suspect there are no donations in these issues for the Liberal or National government. I've said it till I've been blue in the face, Mr Acting Deputy President. Our political system is corrupted and undermined by rent-seeking special interests, vested interests, seeking to influence political decisions, regardless of the impact on public good or public interest. Ross Gittins, one of the country's most experienced economic writers, has written several excellent articles on this subject recently. So looking from the outside in, it looks like the executive government of Australia operates in a closed loop of special interests, lobbyists, staffers, ex-politicians, corporate rent seekers and donations, largely occurring in secret, undisclosed or vaguely disclosed after years of the fact. The Australian public won't even know who donated to this government in the lead-up to the last federal election until February 2015. The proposed wind-back of FoFA reforms are a classic case. The previous government proposed and delivered sensible reforms to financial advice legislation to stop runaway rorts like Storm Financial, remove conflicts of interest in commissions and to provide some simple consumer safeguards. Contrary to what Senator Foreman told the Senate today, there is nothing complex about understanding conflicts of interests or how they undermine consumer rights. Speaking of conflicts of interest, this government is directly embroiled in its own conflict of interest in this debate today. Explaining donations from the big end of town, the big end of finance town, directly to decision-makers able to influence FoFA reforms. The lead proponent for the case against the previous government's FoFA reforms was a Financial Services Council. They represent many of the banks and AMP, as was mentioned earlier by Senator Bishop, that said they could stand to lose from the original reforms. They opposed them, so they naturally sought to influence the result in their members' favour. Other than submissions and direct lobbying, one way it would appear to have tried to influence the debate and the positions of the major parties is through political donations. Over the last few years, not including the recent donations that have yet to be disclosed, the Financial Services Council has donated over $42,000 to the major parties. And these donations were not just general donations to the head office, they were targeted to the major relevant financial policy holders at the time in each party. There were donations too, $11,000 to Joe Hockey's electoral fundraising arm, Mr Tony Smith, the then Shadow Parliamentary Secretary for Tax Reform, Chris Bowen's local re-election fund, the election of then Assistant Treasurer David Bradbury, and $10,000 to, guess who, Senator Cormann. These were not donations towards good public policy, as Senator Cormann will have you believe, but rather they were donations targeted, tailored, towards influencing the people that had the power to make decisions about financial policy in this country, policy which could influence their members' profits. Two of the four people, Senator Cormann and Mr Smith, who authored the Coalition's dissenting report into the FoFA changes, did receive sizable donations from the Financial Services Council. I encourage all members in this place and the public to read the dissenting committee report on FoFA reforms. Seemingly, the Financial Services Council wrote it. Their views are mentioned often enough in it. I'm not saying directly that the Coalition's policy on FoFA is entirely due to donations. I'm sure there is an unhealthy dose of free market ideology thrown there into the bargain as well. But it sure looks bad to those watching us on TV. How could the public draw any other conclusion? The Greens have long been calling for greater transparency with donations and with lobbying. The public has a right to know what influence donations or lobbying efforts are targeting to influence decisions on public policy. Maybe it's not the Truman Show today, but rather it's Groundhog Day. Again, we are debating legislation brought before us by this government to look after the big end of town. We have now had months of debate on the carbon bill repeals, legislation designed to prop up the big dirty polluters and their profits, threatened by a jobs-rich, emerging, clean tech, clean energy industry, all in the face of dire need for immediate, strong and real action on climate change. And then there is the repeal bill for the tax on mining industry super profits. The Liberal National Government again looking after the big end of town, their mates, their donors, supporting the rent-seeking, profit-chasing obsession of the big miners, determined to put the tens of billions of dollars of profits they make, most of which goes overseas and doesn't stay in Australia, ahead of small business, superannuants and the broader Australian community. And let's not forget modern trade deals, or so-called free trade deals under negotiation, and the push by the biggest, most powerful global corporations in the world to have Trojan horse clauses added to these trade deals, called ISDS, Investor State Dispute Settlement Clauses, which give corporations legal rights to sue sovereign governments if their future legislative changes impact their future profits. Even the Howard government wouldn't consider the inclusion of such clauses in previous trade deals. But under this government, where anything goes if you're a wealthy corporation and have influence, such dangerous clauses are on the negotiating table.
Senator, you must assume your seat to be heard. One moment, Senator Whish-Wilson.
Point of order on relevance. We are hearing about trade deals here, whereas that's not the matter before the Senate at the moment in terms of the MPI.
There's no point of order. Senator Seselja, Senator Whish-Wilson.
Yeah, must have hit a nerve there, Mr Acting Deputy President. And now this. The government's proposed changes to FoFA regulations. Changes designed to help make money, more money, fee income for the big banks and financial services companies like AMP. As I've stated previously in this chamber, banks and financial services companies no longer make most of their income and most of their profits from simple deposits and loans. They make the majority of their income from selling financial products and financial services. So these FoFA regulations, while they're in the interests of protecting consumers and the reputation of the financial planning industry who opposes these regulations, they are designed to help the profits of the big end of town. What next, I wonder? I remind the Liberal National Party, the government, that the public expects that the job of decision-makers in government is to protect the public good, not just the profits of big corporations, determined to put their shareholders' interests ahead of the Australian public's interest. It's easy, sitting in here all day, listening to debate, to forget the really important point, that there's a world outside those doors and those windows. We live in a society not in an economy. Contrary to what this government believes, they are not always the same thing. We need reform in this country. We need reform to drive clean energy transition. We need reform for a fairer tax system. And we need reform to protect consumers. And it takes bravery and courage to push through reform. We need legislation that strikes a better balance between the profits of the powerful and the people, consumers, Australian taxpayers and small business.
Thank you, Senator.